to Cartoonists Northwest at an October meeting. There's a sign-up sheet for contact information if you want us to follow up on you in the future. And let's see, on announcements, we have a special treat today. We have cookies, so by all means, help yourself. There's plenty. Hello? Hi. Yes, it is. If there's 1, 2 spare seats there. Oh.
Nobody takes the front end.
So anyway, anybody besides the cookies and we have any other announcements for your event in Kirkland, for example?
Oh yes, I have the postcards out there for the art wine walk in Kirkland. I'll be showing at Kirkland Gallery with some of my rock faces until the 4th of November. So come on by.
Okay, let's see. Anyway, I think that's everything from. Oh yes, right. And then all of the basics. If you all have cartoons you want to show off, we have our Best of the Northwest competition. So if you have something you think is awesome, you put it up, put the number on, and we vote on it at the end of the meeting. And if it wins, it gets to be the centerpiece of 10 Stuff next month. And on that much, if everybody has extra time after the meeting, we continue our fun by going down to University Village Burgermaster and kibitz for as long as they let us. So with any luck, we all love to have you. So anyway, finally, we get to brass tacks. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Max, who is the co-owner of Push Pull down in Ballard. It's an awesome place, and I'll let you tell us all about it.
Cool. So, I'm Maxx Follis-Goodkind, and I'm the founder of Push Pull. I'll give you more information. I have lots of notes. But if you have questions, stop me. I'm willing to ask questions at the end.
You said Push Pull is amazing.
Yep. Yeah, we're open every day in Ballard.
What's stuff you
So,
we need you. Not my name.
So I grew up in Everett, about 30 miles north of here, and I didn't know anything about the Seattle comic scene in the 90s, which is sort of when people say that the Seattle comic scene started, because I was in high school, and too far north to really know what was going on. There wasn't Facebook to get to know what was going on north of me, or south of me. So by the time I moved to Seattle in my 20s, I had no idea that there was an art scene or a comic scene that I could get involved in. I knew I did these things, but I didn't know any other people. So for several years, I was just slowly doing one show at a time, meeting one person at a time, until one day I was managing, at the time, Monster in Ballard. So I had a Ballard connection. It's been there for a long time. And I saw an ad on Craigslist for Dead End Press doing a sketch jam. And I don't know if any of you ever went to those. They were pretty cool. So you spent 5 hours in a room to make a finished piece of art. At the end of the time, you put it on the wall, and people came and they would vote on what they thought the best piece was or what they thought the funniest piece was. And then local businesses, like Monster, donated prizes, and the artists would get the winning prizes. So a few weeks after I saw this ad, here I am sitting in this house in Ballard that has been turned into an art studio. The room full of men that I've never met before, that I've now committed to spending 5 hours with. However, that event led directly to where I am now. 2 of those men are my business partners, and one of them is my husband.
That's a pretty good event.
Yeah. It was okay. So this was my introduction to the Seattle comic scene, and That one afternoon, I learned what Intruder was. I learned what Dune was. I heard names like Mark Paul and Maxx Follis-Goodkind. People that I had no way of knowing. And the reason that I think this is an important story is because that's still how people are learning about comics in Scale. They're coming to small events. They don't know anybody. And all of a sudden, they realize there's this whole community that now they're getting introduced to. Now they can be a part of.
But Matt, what was that? You said what it was, but you.
It was Dead End Press.
But when?
It was 7 years ago? 6 years? 7 years ago?
Dead End Press was where was it located at? Capital?
Ballard. Yeah. So it's a little house that had been turned into an art studio. It's not there anymore. One of the people went on to create Fighting Chance Studio, which is a martial arts studio. And another person moved back to his hometown in Wisconsin. So events organized by artist groups are how people are introduced to this scene. It's still how things are happening. At Push-Pull, that's one of the reasons we have so many events. And as those of us have now been in the industry for a few years, or maybe a few decades, I feel it's important that we keep organizing these events and inviting newcomers. With so many people moving into Seattle, we want them to feel welcome. Events that I directly am involved with that I would love to see all of your faces at are Ballard Sketch Team, which is every second and fourth Wednesday at Hattie's Hat. So coming up this Wednesday, it starts at 6, it goes until whenever. Usually during the summer, it'll go until like 10, this time of year, around 9. Yeah.
What was the name of the event again?
The Ballard Sketch Team. And that was actually started by Seth Goodkind, my husband, right around the time that the Dead End Press events were happening. So it's been going for 6 years now. There's also the Ballard Life Drawing Co-op. So that's on first and third Wednesdays at Push-Pull. Free life drawings. So even if all you do is comics, it's good to get your anatomy right and then the positions right.
Wednesday is it? Wednesday is it?
Yeah.
Is this in your location?
Yeah, that's at Push-Pull.
So it's an indoor activity?
Yeah.
Hit something.
There's also Fresh Look. So that's a peer critiquing event we do at Push-Pull every first Sunday, so in 2 weeks. Starts at 6 and then goes until whenever we're done critiquing. And that's an opportunity for you to bring anything you're working on. So it could be a comic, it could be a poem. We've had people bring songs. I usually have like a painting or something that I'm working on. And it's the concept of like, let's all get better together. And then we have Court, which is our queer art night. So that's the last Thursdays of the month, so coming up next week. And Cabal, which is the Creative Art Babes Alliance. And it is for femme and women to get together. That with Court are just like safe space, make stuff. So those are free events. They start at 6, end at 9. If we're having a really good time, we might go later. So, going back a little more about me. In 2011, I joined a collective gallery in Greenwood Collective. And so it was, if you don't know what a collective is, all the artists pay a portion of the rent, and you all run it together. I loved organizing the events and curating stuff there. But after one of the other artists that I was working with referred to my work as just drawings, I knew I needed to find a new path. I was like, this is not the right place for me. So, where do I go from here? I wanted something where I could show fine art and just drawings. And I also wasn't allowed to sell comics there. So, what was I going to do? The building had 3 open studios at the time, no property manager. So nobody's trying to lease these spaces. nobody to take out the garbage or scrub the toilet. And I was like, I see an opportunity here. So I called the building owner and said, hey, you need a property manager, and I want this studio. So rent me the studio at half the price. I'll get all the other studios leased out and take care of your building. And they thought that was a good deal too. So that's how Push-Pull got started. I could have never afforded to do it, without having that opportunity. Yeah. So now I have this space, and I was like, well, I don't want to do this on my own, and I had met all of these great artists, people that, like me, did fine art and illustration and comics. So I thought, okay, well, I'll get some business partners in. So I asked pretty much everyone that I thought would be a good fit, was at least a dozen artists. All of them said no, except for one, which was Seth. So he went into it and said, okay, I'll give it 6 months, which now is our minimum time to be a member of Push-Pull. Still there. It'll be our 5-year anniversary next month as business. So that has worked out. But when we started, it was just the two of us, and we just had our art. We didn't really have an idea what we wanted to do with the space. We knew we wanted to do something different than what was happening at all the other galleries. So we had gallery space, and we had a little gift shop, so we could have prints, our t-shirts, we both our screen printers. And then we had both at the time had like 2 comics. So about 4 months into running Push-Pull, we went, okay, we can't just have our stuff here all the time. Like, we have to have other people because we can't make art this fast. We're only open 1 day a month. So we're only open for the Greenwood Art Walk. But we decided to aggressively ask people to be guests. And then we thought, well, as long as we're getting other people involved, Seth wanted to do an underground comics market. Very underground. We were actually in a basement. We still are in a basement. So he started Exterminator City, and we started having guest artists. Exterminator City, for anyone that didn't come, was a very small comics market. So very inexpensive. We pretty much let anyone do it. For most people that participated, it was the first comics market that they ever did. We did it 9 times, twice a year for 4 years, and then once this year, and that was the last one this year. The reason that we stopped doing it is because so many other small comics markets have popped up throughout the city, and part of our evolving business model is that if we fill needs, and then if those needs are suddenly being met by someone else, we focus our attention somewhere else. So now there's spring for zines and fall for zines, and there's a bunch of other stuff, mostly happening on Capitol Hill. So it's doing great over there. We're going to do something else over here. But at the time that we did the first one, we were a little nervous about having comics. I mean, nowhere in the city really focused on this, just indie handmade comics. But we had so many people come through for Exterminator City, we thought, okay, well, let's have some of these in the gallery all the time. That evolved to us having art shows that were just the intruder artists, just regular, just their original art from there, and became really the strongest part of what Push-Pull is. We focus on comics. So we still have fine art. I am mostly a fine artist, and the show up at Push-Pull happens to be a solo show that I did. You should go see it. But we started including comics in our little space. After the first year there, it got to be that our biggest problem was that we didn't have enough space. Our openings, people would complain that we couldn't get in. We only had 350 square feet, so that's, it was a very small space. We ran a Kickstarter to open the space that we have now. So July of 2015, we started this Kickstarter. We also decided that we were going to change the structure of the business. It had been a sole proprietor, so I was in charge of everything, responsible for everything. But we decided, since being community was so much a part of what we were, that we were going to create the business as a co-op. So that's what we are now. I'm the majority owner, mostly because for banking and stuff, it really helps if you have somebody that owns 50% of the business or 51% of the business.
Besides, on sweat equity and not alone.
Yeah, well, but everyone that works there actually owns part of the business. So we did this Kickstarter in July. By November, it was successful, felt miraculously. If you don't like high-stress situations, don't do Kickstarter. And by November, we moved into our space that we're in now. Which I'll say it was the only space in Seattle where they would actually show it to us. We lucked out that it was a response to a Craigslist ad that I responded within like 5 minutes of them posting. It just so happens that our landlords are all musicians that own the restaurants that are above us. So they're very sympathetic to renting to artists. But every other real estate broker in town was convinced that our business would fail. So 3 years later, we have paid our rent every month. We're still here. We also decided with the bigger space that we had a lot more opportunities. And opportunities to expand who we showed, who we focused on. So we dedicate 50% of our shelf space to women and non-binary artists. We also aim for 50% artists of color and 50% queer artists. We, every year, do an inventory and make sure we're meeting those numbers, or that we're close. Supporting minority artists, especially cartoonists, it isn't really just about doing what we think is morally right. It's also, we think, how we get more interesting stories. We don't have a lot of superhero books, but the ones we have are pretty unique, and I actually brought one to show you. It's also how we engage a younger audience. So if you want to get kids, especially teens, like, you gotta give them something unique. And speaking of teens, we do have a free teen art program. Part of that is we decided that if we want there to be another generation of awesome cartoonists in Seattle, we're going to train them. So David Lasky and I run that. And we teach them fine art and comics. And it's once a week, all year. And they put out books. We make them do the art direction. We make them do the covers. We make them decide what page layout's going to be. They've put out 3 books so far, all under Push-Pull Press. Push-Pull Press is the next evolution of what we did. So we are publishing our own books, and I brought a couple again to show you. So I think the current state of the Seattle comic scene is pretty amazing. There are many artists that are pushing our ideas of what a comic is and what it should be. I saw Aaron Franklin has one that is screen printed, and it's like a fold-out mountain. You've got Mita Mojado doing paper cutout comics. You've got, so all sorts of different things. And I think that's what Seattle is bringing that I don't see coming from other places. See a lot of unique stories coming from other places, but the way physically that Seattle is making comics is, I think, different. And I brought some stuff to show you. So this is all from Push-Pull. We represent work from around 300 artists. So that's a lot. It's a lot to look at. you'll walk in and it looks like it's a pretty open space because we don't cram the floor like a regular comic shop would. But once you start looking, you realize there's a lot.
So overwhelming.
Yes.
It's a tiny space with everything right around.
Yes. So this is a book from Seth, and we do a lot of stuff on that's political. That maybe a traditional comic shop would stay away from because it's so political. So this is Don't Look Away, Portraits of Victims of Police Murder. So it has his introduction and their portraits and stories. And the joy. So this is by Love and Anxiety. And it has little one-pagers, illustrations. They all have a little bit of text below. This is a group of artists from Costa Rica. One of them is in Portland, and two of them are in Seattle. So we have these cool Costa Rican artists creating really emotional work. Some of it is really sad. Some of it's really happy. It's like a whole ball of emotions in a little book. This is one of the books that we put out. It's just an art book, but because we did it by hand and we didn't send it off to someone else, we got to do this cool thing. This is our display copy, so it's a little worn. But it's got vellum pages in it over other art. And the featured artist for this, who did this cover, and there's two more of his pieces in there, is Dewey Wynn, and he's from Quebec. So people come in and ask me almost every day, how do you find your artists? And the answer is they find us. Push-pull is a unique enough space that there's not competition in the world. So we have artists from all over the world, and if you go in our bathroom, there's two maps, one of the US and one of the world, and there's pins all over that show where art comes from. So Dewey is an artist from Quebec. Very, very detailed illustrations, all done by hand, it's not digital.
I will say you have by far the finest bathroom gallery space in the city.
We do, yeah. So our bathroom is a separate gallery called the Lavatory, and we curate the work in there. Right now it happens to be a little chaotic because it's last chance art. So it's the end of the year. We think this art needs a good home instead of just sending it back home with the artist. We do curate art at 6 other places in Seattle. So all the other Coast Cafes, Substation, the Leary Traveler, and the Icebox. Those three all happen to be in a small area in Ballard. And if anyone, the two companies that we work with the most, that give us the most comics, is Emerald Comics Distro. Does anybody know who they are? Anybody? No? Okay, I'll tell you that one. So Ian Bean is the brain behind Emerald Comics Distro, and is really the only person. So artists submit their work to her. If you've got comics you want to get out in the world and you are not a salesperson type personality, then hit her up because you pay her a small monthly fee. She goes around to, I think the farthest she goes is Bellingham, and then she goes down to Portland. So all the comic shops between there, she will try to get them to buy your book or take it on consignment. So we have a bunch of books from her. We have twice monthly meetings where she sits down and shows me all the stuff. It's great because I can tell her this is the type of stuff I'm looking for, and that's what she brings me. Like, she purposely tries to find those artists. The other company that we work with a bunch is Silver Sprocket. They're the only publisher that we get stuff directly from. And they're in San Francisco. They are a little punk rock anarchist collective putting out comics. So yeah, sounds exactly like what we do. But this I bring up because it won an award at SPX last year. It has been one of our top selling comics for over a year now. It's called Your Black Friend. There's also an animation that goes with it that keeps getting taken off of Facebook. It's really cool. So it's by Ben Passmore, and it's a black artist from New Orleans. And then some stuff that is, this one, Tribal Floors. There is a collective in Albuquerque of Native artists doing stories with Native characters, and based on the mythology. Sometimes there's one called Tales of the Mighty Code Talkers, which we have as well. But this one is cool because it's a superhero kind of story. So if you've got somebody that like wants that kind of classic comic book superhero thing, we can do that. We just do it in a different way. And that one came from Emerald Comics Distro. So it's a great way. They probably would not have found us without her. And this one, I think, this artist is super cool. Amy Beardenful. She lives in Seattle, and she puts out these really kind of offensive comics about Garfield and Alf, called Alf and Garf. This is Sad Cat 4, but she screen prints all of her covers. And it looks really great. It gives people this, like, there is this clearly handmade touch to it, and they get really interested in it. I also like that she uses these vibrant colors. I have another comic with me that uses this hot pink, and I've had more than one person come in and just buy comics with a hot pink cover because they just like hot pink. A couple years ago, it was blue covers that I was telling everyone to do, but hot pink, that's the in color for comics. Brandon Lehman, he does some cool stuff, and this I think is a really fun way to do something unique. So it's a little package, it's a choose your own adventure, and it comes with the deck. So it's this silly, weird, story, but packaging it in a way that is just really interesting, and it stands out on the page. This happens to be my book, but the reason it stands out is this is an acetate cover. If you choose to do this, I will tell you my secret. Is that when you fold acetate, we could put a warm iron on the edge to keep it bent. And it has anybody used risograph? Do you know what it is? No. Yeah. Okay. So risograph is a little like screen printing, and that you burn a screen and then put it through what's like a copier. But you get a lot more texture, and you can get really vibrant colors. Again, hot pink, that you can't get with like a copier. There is Paper Press Punch in Georgetown. They regularly are doing this, and you can take classes from them, and then come back and use their machines. Or you can just pay them to print their machines, like this person did. So it comes out with a really cool cover. This is one of our non-binary artists, and it's recipes and comics that go with them, and they're really funny. They swear a lot. And then, what is the most unique comic we have? Every single one is hand-drawn on the starch paper. So she reproduces the photo. So these are all like prints that are hand glued in here, but every single one is, the rest of it is hand done. This is a story about how cereal is made, and her story about how cereal is made is that dogs vomit the cereal. And different breeds of dogs vomit different breeds of cereal. So,
Kibble.
yeah. Check it out. Is everyone familiar with what Intruder was? So anyone that, if you don't know, Intruder was a group of comic artists sort of started by Mark Palm, who is now in charge of Dune. And they got together and produced these comic newspapers quarterly-ish, sometimes more, sometimes less. And then they would be, all the artists would pay a fee that would go towards printing. They'd get a certain number of copies, and then they distribute them all around town. They'd have great opening parties and art shows and stuff. Well,
they do a broadsheet,
yeah.
and they were in Capitol. Weren't they in the old Hugo too?
They were never in a space. But they, like, we had some of their, 2 or 3 of their parties. Fantagraphics had parties for them all the time. But they ended about 2 years ago. And in their place, other comic newspapers have started. So I wrote a couple for you to look at. I was going to bring a stack, but we run out of them so quickly, we didn't have any. So this is the latest, thickest thieves. Their opening party was last night. This is the Seattle-based version of new free comic paper. And they're sort of associated with Phoenix Comics on Capitol Hill because one of the people that organizes it works there. But feel free to have a look at what other Seattle cartoons they're making. And then this, which is bigger but all black and white, is Vision Quest. So Vision Quest comes out of Portland. There's a third one that we didn't have any copies of called Emergence, and that's Bellingham. Vision Quest is Portland and Seattle, and I actually have a page in here, along with, who else is there? Oh, Aiden Fitzgerald, Sean David Williams, a couple others. And the other free one that we have is Skill Shop. So this is just kind of a cool, gets dropped off every couple months. Shorties helps put it out in Belltown, and it's all about pinball. We happen to have 2 pinball machines, because Seth and I really like to play pinball. So that's why we did it. So yeah, feel free to look at these. I have to take them back. If you want any of them, come up and visit me.
You said what's happening this Wednesday?
This Wednesday is the Ballard Sketch Team, and it's at Hattie's Hat. So if you have ever been to Hattie, it's in the back room, so you just kind of walk all the way back. Starts around 6, and they have full food and drink service, so if you're hungry, thirsty, they have stuff, or you can just come and drop. It's all ages too, which is nice because I have an 11-year-old, so finding, drawing type things you can bring a kid to.
And yours,
When's it start again?
It starts at 6, or around 6.
and you say you're a gallery or
Yes.
a store. I'm
Yes.
confused.
We are all of those things.
And when you guys
Gallery, publisher,
Yeah.
art curator.
We are open every day. That was one of the things, most art galleries have really weird hours, and so they're hard to get to. We wanted to be as accessible as possible. So we're open every day at 11. Sunday through Thursday we're open until 7, though many Thursdays we're open until 9 because of events. Friday and Saturday we're open until 9. So.
and when's your next event?
Let's see.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, so next week, because we have events, so we have classes, we have a mix of like classes, craft events, community events. So next week on Tuesday, I have a crafting class that I'm teaching. And it's making little worlds in bell jars. So we have like miniature stuff from like here and Archie McPhee's, and teach you how to like glue it all together. And yeah. Thursday is the queer art night. I think I get the weekend off, maybe. But I try to do at least one class a week. Any other questions?
Yeah. What do you guys do at Village Sketch Night?
We just draw. Do you know Oscar?
What?
So there is the person that runs our life drawing is Oscar Bachler. He is actually a fine art teacher at Lake Washington Tech. And he comes to sketch team a lot, and he likes to get people like drawing stuff together. So he'll do a lot of exquisite courses. So that's the only thing that you might get, wrapped into. We're actually collecting them together. So Pushbowl will be putting out a book of all the exquisite courses from Valerie Sketching.
With the,
Call
with
it
this-
the exquisite mortuary.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna steal.
the sketching, is that primarily each other, or what are they focused on sketching?
At the Valerie Sketching, it's whatever you want. So
Yeah,
sometimes I'll just draw like the person across from me. Some people are working on like a specific project. Some people are painting with watercolors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
So it's whatever you want to do.
totally open. Yeah. During life drawing, how we keep it free is the people that attend volunteer to model for each other.
Ah,
And it is usually clothed, so it's at the model's comfort. We encourage like costumes and props and stuff. And Oscar times it, so the longest pose that you'd ever be asked to do is 20 minutes.
that's
And
not easy posing.
yes, well, and we have a nice cushy big ottoman that you get to like lounge on and stuff. So usually people are sitting there on their going through Instagram or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, in the business of push bowling,
Mhm.
have you seen any specific changes? Like you say, the market changes, so you start something and then maybe somebody else picks it up and you decide to go some other direction. And
Yeah.
that's all cool, because I was at Exterminator 9.
Oh,
But in fact, it was your conversation after that that led to the invitation. On a longer scale, with all the people you're in contact with around the scene, how does it change? Just the context is, I remember the first time somebody called it the Seattle scene in print was Larry Stranger.
Yeah.
And it was in 1991 or something like that. And part of the deal was that all of the comics in that book were like people who were living right here.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gone everywhere else, and the whole weekly newspaper comic scene has almost disappeared. And so,
Yeah, and that's, I think Seattle is going through one of those times now, where like we have this really tight comic scene, a little bit held together by like the people that do Intruder and Dune, and then they started to move. We've lost a couple artists to more glamorous cities like LA and New York. But I try to think of those as like openings. New artists come in, and I try to make sure there's like events and community that supports them, and it's like, okay, what are you gonna do? It's also led to like us having books from artists where when we got them, they were local, and now they're not. It's a little complicated because sometimes people come into Pushbowl and what they want is local comics. We, about 6 months ago, rearranged everything so that there is a display that's just
I noticed
local
that.
comics. There's local comics in the other displays too, but it gets people to thinking like, oh, these are local things. We've also noticed a huge rise in going from people publishing their own book to press. So when we opened our space in Ballard, we went, okay, we want to, within 2 to 3 years, be able to open a publication division. We were really sure if that meant like buying our own copiers or sending stuff out.
And where do you see yourself going? I mean, that's obviously, it looks like it's mostly ash cans at the moment, but are you planning on going to more full traditional books once the budget allows, or?
We plan on always having a mix.
Okay.
And that's where we've seen other presses in Seattle doing too. So I think we're all kind of embracing this idea that, we can use our corporate discounts and purchasing dollars to be able to make more than 20. We're printing 100 and 200 of a book instead of, just a few. We also do want to print, like, perfect family stuff, bigger stuff. We've got some things in the works. It happened to fall into our lap. One of our members is a book printer, the former Third Place Press when it existed, who is now Volta Press, who happened to have somebody call him and say, hey, I've got these printing machines. So we've had a little dumb look.
Take it.
Yeah, exactly. Been in the right place at the right time. So yeah, we plan on expanding that, but really, I think a lot of the Seattle scene is about, like, people really love these handmade books. And they love the imperfections. They love knowing that, like, somebody, that the artist sat there.
Hand.
Yeah, the artist sat there in Photoshop and laid it all out themselves, or in whatever program they had available.
So, who is your target? Who are your market? In other words, what's the demographics of the buyers at your gallery?
We started real kind of young. I would say like 20, and then we have customers kind of all ages up from there. And we try to have stuff that will appeal to everyone. I read pretty much everything. So if I'm there, I can tell people, what are you interested in? I'll go find something like that. We're less like an age range than we are people that are really progressive, people that are interested in progressive politics, or queer interests, stuff like that.
So, what's the process for an artist to actually get in the co-op itself?
Yes. So, we, on our website, under About Us, there is a link that says Join. And it's kind of like a job interview questions, and it's there to intentionally scare you. If you don't answer any of the questions positively, it's probably not a good fit. But it's like, what is your experience with other art groups? What type of products do you have? Stuff like that. Usually ideally we have 8 full-time people. So being a co-op member means that you're there 4 days a month for a full 8-hour shift. So it doesn't cost you anything to be a member of Push-Pull. You also don't get paid anything. You get a better consignment rate. You get a better rate for your classes. And you get an opportunity for us to publish your books, which we pay you for upfront.
So would do we a percentage or?
A percentage of the cover price, yeah. So we've had as many as 12 people, which is nice. When we do that, we just double up some shifts, which is nice because then vacuuming happens.
So whoever joins has to put in hours working.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have employees. So, like other co-ops, you would have to pay a monthly fee to participate in it. So we consider your time your fee, your value.
Okay.
So do you only publish works from people that are in the co-op?
Good question. No. We are planning to publish works from other people. This book, The Nightmare of Ages, is 15 different artists, and almost none of them, I think only one person is part of the group. The artists on that got copies of the book because it was such a limited series, and some other goodies from us as their payment. But we do next year, most likely, because we're trying to get everything we can squeezed out for short run this year. We'll be taking submissions from outside artists, and we've already talked to a few people where we've seen the work that they're putting out, and we want to publish it. So that's kind of a cool, we see them at Sketch Team, or we see them at the comic challenges, which I didn't even talk about, but you should totally do in 2019.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
I did the 12-hour, and that was a blast.
Yeah, so we do 4 comic challenges a year. April, June, August, and October. So the first one is 6 hours, and then it goes 12, 18, and 24. And yeah, so you're there. The challenge is to make as many pages of a comic as you're there for hours. Dale's done it before too. Several times.
Too old for that.
And yeah, but we feed you, we give you coffee, we give you snacks, we give you moral support.
And like sandwiches.
I guess. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So is there like some kind of master list of other groups like that in different cities around the world, around the country? So like Albuquerque, for instance. I was
Yeah.
just in Albuquerque last year, and I asked like waiters and stuff, is there
Yeah.
independent comic book shop? They direct me to some place that was close to campus, and it really,
Yeah.
and I find out later that there's one, but yeah, how do you?
I don't know of anything. Anytime I see like join this artist group, I always join it. But I really haven't found any sort of comic shop that's just dedicated to independent comics in the country.
Somebody had to start it.
I mean, the
There
closest
must be
the closest is Fantagraphics, which is in Georgetown.
Right.
So we kind of, it's like a Seattle thing, I think. Yeah.
Stick to being friendly.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I had noticed, and not just in comics, but in sci-fi and a few other pop culture areas, Seattleites, the whole atmosphere here is extremely collegial, cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems to me the kind of place that people would work.
Yes.
I mean, like for instance, I was speaking at Worldcon down in San Francisco, science fiction convention, and I was listening to the conversation of a couple other people because I was straight out of our con community, didn't know, I had never been to a convention anywhere else, and these people are saying, oh, well, this is San Francisco, but, down here, if you go to Baycon, you never go to San Francisco. I said, well, why? Well, it's the people who own it, and it's very territorial, and it's just like, how stupid is this?
Yeah.
And then somebody else piped in, the same thing was going on down in Dallas. Oh, if I want to go to a good convention, I go down to Austin, because in Dallas, there's only one of them. There's one guy's particular fiefdom, and if he doesn't like you, you don't get served. And it's just like, no.
Go to
The
Hawaii. They
conventions
have
were
a con
actually,
every other week.
they were actually cooperating with each other. We had a brand new convention that was in reaction to a con that we thought we could improve on. And it was like we went to the other convention and said, hey, could we borrow your art panels? Sure, no problem. Here, just sign them out. And they contributed people to us, and all the other ones did too, and we made a convention.
Yeah.
And it just, I felt that many different times. I mean, the classic story of Eddie Vedder coming to town and Chris Cornell showing him around, and then including him in his music.
Yeah.
And it's like, it seems to be a thing we do, and it seems to me to be a thing we can teach.
Yeah, and I think for me it seems like a little bit of like, hey, it's so hard to get by here. Why would you try to compete? We need to hold each other up. And we do that a lot with Fantagraphics. We've moved events, they've moved events, so that we're not competing with each other. That's a little bit of how Ballard Night Out got started, which is a community event that I run, because the Ballard Art Walk is on the same night as the Georgetown. And so we're like, when we open in Ballard's, we're like, well, Ballard's already busy on a Saturday night. Georgetown is dead. Like, they need something happening. So why would we be trying to take their, so we thought, Thursdays. Ballard, let's get some life in Ballard. Let's leave them alone. So we started Ballard Night Out, which is in its second year, and it's going really well. We've got about 30 venues every month. But yeah, we've also had Fanographics has sent us their artists for their publications to do an artist signing because it was it would have conflicted with an event that we were having. So it's been pretty amazing the support that we get. You know, we want to carry all of the local presses. We have the highest consignment rate in town, intentionally, because we want to support people. We know it's really expensive to put these books out, because we do it. But yeah, I do feel like there's a good sense of support within town. And I try to make it a goal to be one of those mentors that's like, hey, what opportunities can I tell you about? What opportunities can I offer to you? And yeah, people like Larry have done the same for me.
I wonder if it's possible for CNW and Push-Pull to cooperate on some kind of event. Maybe some sort of drawing event, like where we're right out in public.
Yeah.
Maybe at, I don't know, at the Seafood Fest or some otherwise operating public venue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you're right. The only way to get more people in it is for them to know it's here.
Yeah. Yeah, we have people come in all the time that are like, I didn't know that this was happening in Seattle. And they're like, oh, well, when did you move here? Oh, I've lived here my whole life. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well.
You know, Bill, we need to make a poster.
Yes, and
Yeah.
a flyer,
Yeah,
which
we
I
do
already
put up
have in
posters
memory.
and have flyers, all sorts of community stuff.
Banners.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you Facebook?
Yeah, I love these.
Maybe we share Facebook.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, that's what I know. We found that you kind of have to be on all the social medias to make it work. Especially people in Seattle tend to have one thing that they like, and if you're not on that, then they're never going to know you exist. So, last year we joined Meetup, and that has made a huge difference in our
Really?
attendances.
So you're on Meetup?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like
Meetup,
events and-
Facebook, Instagram, you guys tweet.
Twitter, yeah. I tried to do Tumblr, but I gave up. I don't know. I'm too old to figure it out.
Even Tumblr's getting out when it's
Oh, good to know. Okay.
Let's see.
I only get the results from it when I do blatantly geeky stuff on it.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing a series of Game of Thrones illustrations.
Yeah.
Some books.
Yeah. Well, if nobody has more questions, I would encourage you to come up and look at these books. Feel free to ask
Okay.
questions about them.
Fantastic.
Wait. Why not read some comments?
Yeah, so thank you very much. And as I said, everybody else who has Best of the Northwest stuff, put them there. And
Where do we put the votes?
I was getting to that.
You said you push pull is on that Meetup, right?
Yeah, it should be under events that push pull. It's push/pull. There's no spaces.
And remember the cookies. Oh, and who has a sign-up sheet in my pen? Okay, good.
Oh, this is a great Halloween.
Yeah. Something, intentionally kind of Halloween, spooky, scary.
Yeah, I enjoy watching Halloween wars.